Okay, Fundamentals of GeoInt. This is lab number 6. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we will start talking about the lab. So, you guys both see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So the instructions on Canvas tell you to go ahead and download the zip file. It has this R file in it and also has your data in it. The other instruction on Canvas lets you know that I will be assigning you a specific country before the start of the lab, and I did send out an email just about 10 minutes ago that tells you which country you will be performing your analysis on. Did you guys see that email?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so part of the goal of this lab here is to build on yesterday's lecture on hazards and do a pretty simple analysis using R. So the point of this lab is not so much to learn how to do a really complicated analysis, but much more just a basic introduction to R and how to use it. One thing I will tell you is that I am using R directly on my machine. The lab was written specifically for the version of R that's on the VMs. It is the same version basically, and everything should work just the same. It's just going to look a little bit different. So just something to be aware of. R looks a little bit different depending on which platform you're using, whether that's Mac, PC, or Linux. So the first step in this lab is to install your packages. And really the power of the R scripting language is that there are packages written to do just about any type of analysis that you would want to do. So even going way beyond what we think of as traditional geospatial analysis, there's stuff for reading in sensor data, or honestly, just about anything you can think of, somebody's written a package for it. Installing packages can be a little bit tricky. They can be kind of hard to find. So what you want to do basically to get those installed is go up into your packages and data. If you've never done this before, it's going to ask you to select a site to look for the packages in, and usually I pick one of the sites that's based out of the U.S. I think there's a University of California, Berkeley site that I pick. And then once you have this window up, you're going to get a list of all of the packages that are available. And you can do a little search in your window here, and you should be able to find the RGDAL package. So that's the R interface to the Geospatial Data Abstraction Libraries. GDAL is something that we've talked about in the past. It's really the leading open source library for doing any type of geospatial analysis. So once you find that guy, you're going to click on it, and you're going to be sure to click Install Dependencies, because that will also install all the packages that this specific package depends on. So Zach, have you gotten to this point yet? Have you been able to find the RGDAL package?
RGD. Yep, I found it on the VM. It's a little. I have RStudio on my home laptop. This is like a different version of R.
Okay.
But yeah, I found it.
Okay, excellent. So you're going to go ahead, click Install Dependencies, and then install this RGDAL package. And then basically you go through the same process for the raster package, right? So I'm not going to install it on mine because I've already got it installed, but exactly the same process. I'm going to type in raster into the box. You will see this package that's called raster. Make sure you pick the right one, because there's obviously a few in here that use raster in the name, and then you're going to install selected and install the dependencies. If I remember correctly, when you use the VM, there's one more box that pops up asking you if you want to install these locally, I think is what it asks you, and you just click OK on that box, and everything should work just fine. So have you guys both been able to successfully install those packages now? You've gotten R started up and gone and installed the packages?
Yeah, there's just so many, I can't find the roster.
So it may take you a little bit of time to find those packages, but the basic idea is that once you have those packages installed, you should be all ready to go. And the way that I've written this lab, I've actually written it as an R document to get you familiar with what this scripting language looks like. So as you step through this document, I would encourage you just to copy the commands as we go through and paste them into your R command window, right, which is, or console they call it right here, so that you can really see what each one of these different functions and commands does. I'm not going to go through the entire lab right now. I'm going to skip down to what your assignment is for this lab. So your basic task is to determine the risk of extreme heat in that specific country that I assigned you via email. And you're going to create a shapefile of that country first. Then you're going to perform a spatial join of the temperature layer to the country shapefile layer. And then I have this set of ranges here that you can use to determine if your country is at risk. So after you perform the spatial join, you'll be able to get an average RGB value for that country based on this temperature layer, and you'll be able to compare it against this list here to determine the level of risk that your country has. What you're going to turn in for this lab is an R document, right? So if you're doing this using Notepad+, which is what I recommend you use to create the R document because it does some really nice highlighting in R automatically. That's a default Windows viewer, it doesn't do. You can just basically create a new document and name it .r. And that's all you need. There's some elements you need in there, name, date, obviously, and the important thing is that you include all of the code that you use to complete your task, including one comment for each line of code. So you can see in this script how I put comments in there. You just use this hashtag after a command or function to put a comment in there. So I'm definitely going to be checking to make sure that every line of code that you turn into me has a comment after it explaining what it does. At the end of this R document, you're going to have a final comment that reports the results of your analysis. So the average RGB value in your country and the risk level of your country. And then I also want you to think about some of the limitations inherent in this analysis that you're doing. So think about that and be sure to mention at least one limitation of the analysis, right? Where does this analysis fail? Where is it maybe not as accurate as it could be? And then once you have this R document complete, you just upload it directly to Canvas. So that's about it. Any questions?
So you want us to run all the commands off the console and then just copy the commands they use into a document?
Exactly. I would like you to use this R document that I've given you as the lab, run through it so you understand how to make R work if you don't already know, and then you're basically you will probably use most of these commands that I've shown you in the lab in your own document, but really how you use them is totally up to you. What I am going to do as part of my assessment of your lab is I'm going to expect to be able to take your R document and run it myself, right? So whether that's just copying and pasting your commands in or running the whole thing all at once, doesn't really matter, but it needs to be a functional R script, if that makes sense.